When I started planning for retirement, I sat down with my financial advisor and we projected my retirement income based on my savings, CPP, old age security, and my pension. He calculated that I would have $6,500 left each month after tax after paying all of my expenses and bills. "That's more than enough," I said to myself. "I'll have a little over $6,500 left after paying my mortgage and utilities and my property taxes and my food and my clothing and travel and all the other stuff. Yeah, I won't have to work anymore. Now, 3 years later, and I'm still working. Why? Well, I found out there was a lot more to retiring than just money. You see, there are 4 distinct phases that most people go through when they retire, and if you understand them, you'll be able to make your retirement a much happier and more fulfilling experience. Let me take you through each of them. Phase number 1, the vacation phase. When you first retire, you may think that you've won the lottery. All of a sudden, you have the time and the flexibility to do whatever you want whenever you want. And all you have to do is show up. This is the vacation phase. You might sleep in or get up early and tend to your garden. You might read or take long walks or bike rides. You might visit friends or travel to exotic locales. Life is one big vacation. Now, this is the golden phase for most people, and it usually lasts between 6 months and a year. But what happens next? Well, you get bored. All of a sudden, the idea of lying around all day doesn't seem so appealing. You're yearning for something more. Now, if you're not careful, you might fall into one of the retirement traps. A friend of mine retired 5 years ago from a high-stress job. He loved his work, and he loved the challenge and the excitement of the marketplace. Retirement was supposed to be his reward. He planned to spend his days fishing and golfing and hanging out with his buddies. But within a few weeks, he found himself getting dressed, driving around, and looking for something to do, feeling sorry for himself. Within a few months, he was spending his days driving around the city looking for parking spots so he could hang out in shopping malls and restaurants. He had become what's known as a mall walker. Now, not that there's anything wrong with that, except that it wasn't for him. He tried it for a while, but eventually he found a part-time job where he could be useful, where he could interact with people, where he could put his skills to work again. He felt alive again. Phase 2, the loss phase. If you fall into the trap of not planning ahead for what to do in retirement, you'll probably feel lost. You'll feel a loss of routine. You'll feel a loss of identity. You'll feel a loss of purpose, of challenge, and you'll feel a loss of power. Now, believe it or not, these losses are completely normal. The trick is to recognize that they're normal and not let them knock you off your game. You see, retirement brings with it 5 big losses. You lose that daily routine that you used to look forward to. You lose the identity that was tied to your job. You lose the relationships and friendships that you developed at work. You lose a sense of purpose. Maybe you lose a sense of power. Now, if you're not careful, you can get sucked into a black hole of regret and self-pity and depression. The solution is to recognize that this is what's supposed to happen. You lose these things and then you replace them with new things. And it's a process. Some people deal with it by throwing themselves into a bunch of new activities. Other people prefer to deal with it gradually. What you shouldn't do is nothing. If you don't deal with it, it'll just build up inside of you. Phase 3, the disappointment phase. Have you ever heard of the U-shaped curve of happiness? Here it is. In the early years, happiness is high. We're excited about life. We're optimistic and ambitious. Then we hit our stride and our happiness levels stay steady. Then we start to retire and our happiness goes down. And then we recover. We find a new sense of purpose and our happiness levels off again. The secret is to understand that the disappointments you'll encounter along the way are totally normal, and that the key is to overcome them and press on. Now, of course, we all know that retirement isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There's a reason why most people don't retire rich. In fact, according to Statistics Canada, the average Canadian household headed by someone age 65 has less than $100,000 in net worth. And there's a reason for that. It's expensive to live in retirement. If you don't plan properly, you'll run out of money. Now, there's a lot of great material out there to help you plan for retirement. This isn't about the financial pressures of retirement. If you haven't done so yet, I encourage you to watch the videos in my financial planning series. I'll link to them at the end of this video. But this video is about the pressure you'll feel to fill the void left by lack of meaning and purpose in your life. You know, we humans are social creatures. We thrive on contributing and making a difference. So it's normal to feel that pull even in retirement. Phase 4, the contribution phase. Most people never reach this phase because they either die or they go back to work. But the truth is that retirement doesn't mean you have to stop working. In fact, it means that you should stop working for money. But you shouldn't stop working. You see, in this contribution phase, you're motivated not by money, but by a desire to contribute, to mentor, to pass on your knowledge and experience, to help others achieve their goals. Now, if you're at this stage, you might have stopped working full-time, but you still get a big kick out of sharing what you know with others. Now, it's not always easy to find opportunities to do that, but if you look hard enough, you can find them. Here's an example. My wife retired a few years ago from her job as a guidance counselor. She spent many of her last years working with a particular group of students, helping them select courses and plan for their futures. Once she retired, she missed those students. She didn't want to sit around waiting for the phone to ring, so she contacted the principal at the school and asked if she could come in one day a week and continue to work with that group of kids. And guess what? The school was thrilled to have her. She's still there one day a week, helping students get on the right track for their futures. Now, if you're in the early stages of retirement and you're wondering how you can contribute, here's a story that might inspire you. Several years ago, I became acquainted with a lady who was in her mid-80s. Her name was Mary. Mary was born in Poland, and during the Second World War, she was sent to a labor camp where she worked in a munitions factory. After the war ended, she immigrated to Canada and raised a family. And then, one day she said to herself, "You know, I have a lot of experience. I learned a lot in that factory, and nobody knows it." One day, she opened a small business repairing and cleaning watch parts. Her business grew, and she became known throughout Canada as the watch repair specialist. At the age of 75, she sold her business and retired. But shortly after that, she suffered a debilitating stroke. When she was released from hospital, she was barely able to speak, and she needed to learn how to walk again. But she recovered, and she was determined to make something of her life. So she started tutoring immigrants in English and teaching them how to repair watches. She ran that program for several years until she was well into her 80s. Shortly before she died, she was featured in the local newspaper as a remarkable woman who just refused to give up. You see, we don't have to retire from contributing. We just have to find a new purpose. So, how about you? Which phase of retirement are you in? If you're not retired, which phase are you looking forward to the most? Let me know by leaving a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.